Welcome to the Sickle and Sword podcast. Today I have with me my sister, Cherie Kelley.
Hey, good to be here today.
Let's get into our topic of discussion today.
Okay.
What does healthy living mean to you?
That's a great question. So, healthy living, I would say, to my definition of healthy living has definitely evolved over time. I think when I was young, in my head, it was getting enough water and making sure I got enough exercise, and maybe focusing a little bit on what I ate. But that, as long as I had the exercise, that was good. As I've gotten older, I've realized that that's a great foundation. What we eat, what we drink, what we put into our bodies for nourishment, sustenance is just kind of like a great starting point. Today, I would say that it's those things as well as, environment, what's going on around me, my home life, what are we around as far as products that we use, whether it's cleaning products, laundry stuff, toiletries, that sort of thing. And then also a huge part of it is realizing that it's not just about the body. It's a body, mind, and soul type thing. So I think that true health is things that support the body, doing things that support the body, doing things that support mental health, and making sure that we've got the spiritual aspect as well, and being in good standing with God, working to live the way that we should, and fall more in love with Him every day and how we live. So that's kind of the whole picture to me of what health looks like these days. But
Okay. So we can get into each of those areas, but to start with, let's get back to in our bodies, what we consume, what we eat, things like that. Mm-hmm. What are some common things that you see that are kind of bad for people, or that people should be eliminating from maybe their diets or what they're in their environment?
So first, I would say that the thing that kind of opened my eyes on all of this stuff was declining health for myself. I had a lot of health problems starting about 13 years ago. I'd always been really healthy, and all of a sudden I started just kind of going downhill with my health. I had always tried to be fit and eat well. And then I was going to the doctor, and I was like, okay, these are my symptoms. This is what's going on. And no one had any answers. I kept leaving and was frustrated because it was like, I got nowhere, no traction, not even ideas about what possibly could be going on. And I started doing some digging and researching on my own. And that's when I figured out that things are not all as they seem when it comes to like food and like I said, the products that we use. So I was at Walgreens the other day, and they have the packets of ramen noodles. They used to be like 25 cents a pop, and I think they're like 69 cents at Walgreens now. But I was like, oh, I haven't had those in forever. I'm just going to grab some of those for lunch this week. And I flipped it over to open it up at home and put it in the boiling water. And I noticed that it was basically had a warning on the back that it was at least partially engineered. So man-made and engineered, created. And I was like, oh, what? And so it's things like that are not good for our bodies, because our bodies are not designed to digest that. My body's not designed to take care of that and process it right. And so food things, that's kind of what you're looking at. And then with toiletries, cleaning products and things like that, they've got things in there like, toiletries, the big thing is fragrance is a huge problem. So come to find out over the years, basically hormones were a huge issue for me. Well, fragrance mimics estrogen. And so if you are estrogen dominant already and you start using products that have fragrance in them that kind of produce more, cause your body to produce more, or introduce your body to more estrogen, I should say. So if you're introducing products like that to your body, you're looking at throwing things out of balance even more than they are on their own. In addition to things like fragrance, you've got some other, I think most people are aware of like parabens, sulfates, because that's kind of a catchy thing right now. Shampoos especially will be like sulfate free, no parabens, and it's like, okay, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And so I'm probably going to say this wrong, sodium lauryl sulfate or something like that is really common in shampoos and things. It's not good. Like if you go and a simple search on a lot of this stuff will kind of show you, oh, okay, that's a toxin. Oh, okay. It creates a bad situation in the body. So if we take that and we turn and look at food as far as like products with chemicals in them and things, you've got the same thing happening, but internally. And so I read somewhere not too long ago that a huge part of like fat loss resistance, weight loss resistance is tied to inflammation. And a lot of these chemicals and things that we are in the foods that we eat, I say foods, I should be putting that in parentheses, but are causing inflammation. And then that kind of causes this cascade of symptoms, people don't even realize that that's what's causing it. And so then they're going on medications because, oh, my blood pressure's elevated. Oh, my sugar's elevated. And really to me, the basis, the foundation should be to look at what am I eating to cause that in the first place. But that's kind of what's going on with food and all the different products. That's a quick overview of it. It's a multifaceted issue. One thing that we have to look at with that is like food. There's so much convenience food out there. And what started out as here, have something for on the go has kind of replaced traditional meals and foods. And so now you're looking at that being some people's only diet is quick food. Never sitting down to a home cooked meal where everything's been made from scratch, from actual food instead of engineered foods and man-made, man-created foods. So, and I know I've been talking about it for a little bit, but it's, like I said, it's so big. But even, people are like, oh, well, but I incorporate a lot of fruits and vegetables in my diet. I have a lot of real foods. And that is almost a whole other topic on its own because they're traditional fruits and vegetables, depending on how they grow and how susceptible they are to like pests and things, determines the level of pesticides that they use on them. And those in and of themselves are very toxic. One of the most common ones used is glyphosate. And it's actually, I don't know if you've ever heard about the Monsanto lawsuit stuff.
No, I haven't.
So Monsanto is, I believe, the company behind Roundup.
Okay.
And so, Roundup is widely known as a pesticide, and they use it. They'll use it like in landscaping, but they'll also use it on foods and things like that, like to help keep stuff, pests from getting in the food and destroying crops and things. But what they have started seeing is that these landscapers who have been around it for years because that's their livelihood, they have started coming up with like Hodgkin's lymphoma and other types of cancer. And they have actually had lawsuits where they've had to pay a lot of money out to people. And so but their product, that glyphosate, is still being used and sprayed on things today.
Right.
And so that's where you kind of have to look at fruits and vegetables and say, there's a rule, actually, it's called the clean 15 or the dirty dozen. And that will actually switch out. I'll be real honest, I'm not sure what causes it to change from year to year as far as what's on the lists. But if you look up like the list for your year, the year you're in, those clean 15, you don't have to worry about doing organic or whatever, because they're not being sprayed heavily like that. But the dirty dozen are the ones that are going to be heavily sprayed with glyphosate. They're the most at risk. And so if it's being sprayed on the food, you're consuming it. And so you want to buy those organic if possible.
Where can people go to see the list of the clean 15 or dirty dozen?
Quick Google search will pull that up for you. Sometimes I go to Pinterest for that. Sometimes I feel like they just kind of narrow stuff down a little bit better for me, but that's just a personal decision. But a quick Google search will pull up 2024's clean 15 dirty dozen list, and it's right there.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
So
yeah.
that's pretty interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Awesome.
So what are some common foods that people should avoid? That you mentioned, like the convenience foods. Is it necessarily like your the ding dongs, or is it really just stuff that we think is okay, like fast food?
Oh man. Like I said, I think you could do a whole segment just on food in and of itself, because it's so, and still not get through all of it. So one of the things that I will say is, like, when you start kind of going off of certain things, you can actually start tasting it in those foods. So I hadn't had Oreos in forever. And I say the other day, it's been probably a few months or so, but I was like, ooh, Oreos and milk sounds so good. I haven't had that in forever. And as you can tell, I'm not one of those 100% staunch, never have any of the things that I shouldn't kind of people. Like,
You got to live a little.
Yeah. And every once in a while, a craving just hits, and I'm like, ooh, that sounds so good. But I kid you not, they tasted so chemically that I couldn't finish them. I was like, this is gross. This is not what I remember at all. And so things like Oreos, there's a reason that they say Twinkies never go bad. I mean, I don't think people try to eat them after a certain amount of time, but there's a reason they don't go bad. They're not, outside of, even leave alone the sugar content. Like, chemicals cause them to live that long.
When you say live, that's a whole nother element.
Yeah. But, and then fast food, it's so tough, because I know that for us, we just kind of get in these situations sometimes where it's the end of the day and we've got somewhere to be, and we don't have that space in between to sit down and eat a meal at home. And so again, we do consume fast food, but it's one of those things where just being aware that, for one instance, McDonald's, my understanding about McDonald's is that they are extremely particular about their potatoes for their French fries. And so they only use a particular potato. And you're like, okay, no big deal. People love McDonald's French fries. Arguably, probably the most popular fast food French fry. But they actually take them and they, like if you go get French fries at Wendy's, you're going to see like the typical brown spots and things that occur in potatoes. Like it just happens, right? McDonald's is like, we don't want that. We want a perfect looking fry. So they actually spray something. I don't remember what it is, but they spray something on their potatoes to keep that look. And the people who spray them have to wear, like hazmat
suits. Yeah, I've seen that. I saw that article somewhere, and I was just like, well, probably shouldn't eat those.
Right.
And yet I do.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I don't think I've had McDonald's French fries since I saw that because I was just like, I'm sorry, what? But yeah, it makes you kind of sit back and go,
Hmm.
but wait a minute, you're spraying that on there and then I'm putting that in my body,
Hmm.
and I forget how long, but like they have to let it sit in there for
It's a really long
a
time.
long time.
It's a long time because of the toxicity of the chemical when they spray it. It can't be. It's like, okay, you're gonna let the toxins fade before you feed it to people.
Right.
That sounds pretty dangerous, but
Yeah.
I mean, and that's not trying to be strongman. It's just really that is insane.
Yeah. It
That
is.
concept of let's put a lot of poison on this stuff.
Yeah.
It'll keep it fresh.
Right.
Hold on. So
Yeah. And I do get it. I understand the idea of wanting like convenience, if like we've talked about, people are busy, they've got work, they've got kids, they've got, church, you've got events that kids have sporting events and things. And so it just like gets spinning so fast that we're like, okay, what's something easy we can do here?
mhm.
But I think one of the main issues that people have with this topic is, but the government would never allow food to be poisoned in that way, which essentially is what it is. Like,
Oh, the FDA.
poison. Yeah. They're like, oh, no, we have the FDA. They would never do that. I'm not sure if people realize or not, but like European countries do not allow the chemicals that are allowed in our foods.
That's right. They require their people to come up with processes that preserve the food more naturally, and they do not allow them to put the time. And I will need to find a source on this. I don't remember where I got it, but the time it takes for food to be harvested and served in European countries is some ridiculous fraction of what we do here.
Right.
I mean, months to years.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. Well, I've seen labels of like, okay, foods like Doritos, say, and European nations have them, but you compare like a UK label of Doritos to a US label,
It's not even close.
it'll blow your mind. And theirs is this, ours is this, and it's got all kinds of stuff. That's not food.
No.
It's not food stuff in there. It's not food ingredients. It's dyes. It's, all this sort of thing. And dyes is another one, like they are finding more and more that kids' behavioral issues like ADHD and just acting out and all these other behavioral problems can go back to food dyes. So like the reds and the blues and yellows that are in food. And I think it's overall agreed on that red 40 is probably the worst. But initially it was like, oh, we've got to put them on Ritalin. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. And now people are kind of like, why is this such an issue when it wasn't, 40, 60 years ago? And they're coming back to food.
Mm-hmm.
It's what's in the food. It's the red dye. And they're seeing a lot of improvement. And I actually saw a lady on Instagram the other day, and she opened it up to her followers, and they were like, oh, 100%. We took our kids off of some of that stuff, and I don't even recognize them compared to who they were before.
Wow.
They were aggressive. They were, I couldn't do anything with them. I couldn't get them to calm down. They didn't listen to me in mind. And now they're like, I want to read. I want to, they're still playing. It doesn't change that. The kid in them that wants to play, but it does like bring them down a little bit to, okay, they're manageable and able to listen. Their little developing brains just can't handle some of that at the level that it's given to them, I think, at some points. And I'm not trying to shame because I'm not 100%. just mostly trying to share what I've learned versus
Sure.
say, don't do this or you shouldn't do that. Because trust me, every now and then I like to drive through and get a shake or fries or, whatever. But just being aware, I think, goes a long way in
Sure.
saying, oh, okay, I had no idea. I'm going to look into that. And maybe somebody sometime will hear something that's like, I wonder if that's why my child or I have the problems that I have, So,
So many things. I mean, we know so many people that have, as soon as they've gone off of certain type of food or some type of chemical, that almost immediately they start seeing results.
right.
And I thought it was kind of funny when you talk about you can taste the difference, and it's so true that it's almost difficult to go. I'm not the best either. I still eat out a lot. I still eat a lot of fast food. But I found that when I go to restaurants sometimes or fast food, that I end up not even having an appetite after I've started eating the food because it just tastes so off to me, or there's something off-putting about it. And I realize, I don't eat that anymore. And I haven't been eating like this, I've been really, and I'm not that particular.
Yeah.
So if I notice it, I know other people who really do actually try to get all of that out. It really must have an aversion to that stuff. 'Cause
Right.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like I've noticed it just, even though I don't even do it hardcore.
Right. Right. Another thought with that is so Nathan, my husband has Graves' disease, which is a hyperactive thyroid disorder. And it's widely known with those who have thyroid issues that gluten can be a problem. And people kind of laugh about it. They're like, man, this whole gluten-free thing is just getting out of hand and it's crazy. Why it's been fine for us all these years and all of a sudden it's a problem. But it was not been easy at all. And he's not 100% either. He's not celiac, so you've got intolerance, which is like celiac level. And then you've got sensitivity. With his, it's more of a sensitivity. And what can happen with thyroid disorders is the body struggles to be able to identify gluten. I think the thyroid is something to do with the thyroid and how it interacts with gluten. And it will actually cause the thyroid to attack itself. But they warn you, they told him whenever he was diagnosed, just FYI, gluten is probably a problem for you. You should at least consider coming off of it. And so it was really difficult at first. He's like, we like bread, we like pasta, we like all the things. But he started coming off of it, and it got to the point where he was like, oh my word, I hadn't had gluten all week. And then we went out to eat Friday for date night, and I had it, and I feel horrible. And we were just like, wow, that's crazy. How can that be? But I think people are more understanding of that. And with celiac disease, they're just like, okay, well, that makes sense. Like celiac, it's like life threatening for you to have gluten, and makes you extremely ill. Like even if something that you eat was cooked in the same pan as gluten, like it can cause a reaction in you, and it's really, really bad. But everybody's like, okay, well, outside of that, what's the big deal? We've been having gluten forever, blah, 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 blah. And I heard Dr. Barbara O'Neill talk about it not too long ago. She's a very smart lady in the functional medicine world. And she's explained that about in the 60s, they started hybridizing wheat, and it changed how our bodies can break it down. And so everybody's like, oh, it's been around forever. The Bible talks about bread, and all of these things. We've got pasta. Everybody's had this for forever. And now all of a sudden it's a problem. And it's like, well, because they decided they wanted to streamline their process with it, make it cheaper, faster, all the things, like a better. It was about pests, not pestilence,
Mm-hmm.
pests, and keeping them at bay. And so that's why they hybridized it in the first place, was to make it more resistant to pests and everything, so that the crop could thrive with minimal loss. And so now the wheat that you're consuming is not the wheat of even 100 years ago. And so that's why people are kind of having to look at gluten and be like, okay, is this why I'm having the trouble that I'm having? So there's that. But yeah, it's just interesting. There are so many reasons to take a closer look at what we're consuming, what we're eating, what we're putting on our bodies, what we're washing our clothes with even. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely not just the consumption. So let's get into some of the other environmentals. Like you mentioned fragrance, but that's not just in shampoos and things like that. That's in a lot of things.
Candles, laundry detergents. You'd be hard pressed to find anything that you use in your home to clean, or anything in your toiletry collection that doesn't have fragrance in it. It's very pervasive. And it's another thing, though, that once you start getting rid of it, it makes you extremely sensitive to it. So,
Wow.
we've been places now which Nathan has a lot of sensitivities due to allergies in the first place. But now when I've cut back, and so I go places and I'm like, man, that's so strong. And you almost instantly start getting a headache. But it's just that we've kind of over the years just slowly crept it all in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, companies have been putting more and more of it in things. I mean, you've got the scent boosters now for laundry, which is great. Like, everybody, you want your stuff to smell good. You do. You want your home to smell good. You want your laundry to smell good. But it's been getting heavier and heavier over the years. And so now most people don't even notice it. They don't even realize how strong their clothes smell, things like that. But then you get away from it and you start coming around it again. You're like, whoa, that is so strong. And it just really affects you. But that's just the initial response. There are other responses in the body that are going on that we can't see, such as, the increase of estrogen. There products like that, fragrance and things like that, are what we call estrogenic, and they mimic estrogen. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's going on with that. And then it kind of causes it to boost your estrogen over time. And that's men and women. And so women are supposed to have more than men are. And so then you've got men. Well, what happens for men is they start putting on weight. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I don't understand. Well, it's overpowering their testosterone, and it's putting on the weight, and it's coming on faster than what they can. Their estrogen levels are going up, and so they can't take the weight off as quick as they used to. But
there's a lot of studies out there now. They're saying that, and I don't know what the exact numbers are, but the average male testosterone levels have decreased so much just in the last 50 years,
right,
that they're generating a lot of studies, because they're like, what is going on? Well, I mean, if you look around you, though, everything you use in your home mm-hmm. has that in it. And so you're literally fighting estrogens as a male everywhere.
Right.
Everywhere you go. When you go in a restaurant and they've got candles going, or they've got a Scentsy, or they've got something, it doesn't have to be a restaurant. It could be any store you go into that has anything like that.
Kirkland's.
Yeah, when you walk in there, it's like, whoa. I mean, I get a headache just literally walking in the door and taking my first breath. That store, I can't hardly tolerate it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And people are just so unaware. Right. I think that's the worst part, is that this has happened over a period of time, and you don't want to be conspiratorial and think these companies are just, they're all getting together and trying to find ways to destroy the populace. I don't think that's necessarily the
No.
case. They're doing what they feel will advance their income by being the strongest scent or
Right.
by being the best smelling detergent or whatever it may be. And what they don't realize is what they're doing to people.
Yeah.
And maybe they do. Some of them, I'd be hard pressed to believe that some of them have not done studies themselves
Yeah.
and are not aware of what's happening. But at some point, something's got to give.
Yeah.
But there are other products out there that don't have these things. And I think one of the big keys is just not only finding those, but then finding a way to get that information out to people. I mean, you may even have some examples. I don't know if you have any off the top of your head, but of products that you use, and maybe not even exact product names, but generalities of, well, we don't really use this anymore. We now use X. And do you have anything like that you guys have switched out in your home?
Oh yeah, we have a lot. So this is it. This is where it gets a little interesting because it's like everybody's taste isn't the same. I mean, like even with traditional candles and laundry detergents and cleaners, everybody has their own idea of what smells good and works for them and all that. So it's a little bit, it's got to be case by case, and it's a lot of trial and error. We tried products that it was like, oh, like I appreciate that the chemicals and the toxins aren't there, but I also need you to clean my clothes, And so we used some pretty, we used Downy Unstoppables for a while, which are their scent boosters. So strong. But that is, I'll be honest, that's the laundry detergent is one that we're still kind of working on. We use All Free and Clear right now because we have been trying some of the other things and they just don't work in the same way. And I have a feeling that a lot of the scent, the fragranced things, the fragrance is covering up. And so you don't realize that it's the same. It's not working any better, but the fragrance makes you feel like it is. Mm-hmm. And so we're still kind of working on that one, but like, one cleaning product that we absolutely love and 100% agree on is Branch Basics. And you can buy a starter kit with them. And they have a concentrate that you buy, and then you make up like your laundry detergent, which it was okay. Like it wasn't our favorite, but everything else that they offer. So they have an all-purpose cleaner. They have a bathroom cleaner. They have a window cleaner, and it's like you mix it up in certain ratios with water. And Nathan says that he loves the window cleaner because he's like, this works better than Windex, Windex streaks and all that. And he's like, I love this cleaner.
I've actually used it. I actually do. I love it. That's what I use on my truck.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yep. He loves it for the cars. And what else do they have? They have a foaming. I'm not really a foaming soap person, like hand soap. I feel like it just dries my skin out really bad, but they have that option if you like it. You can mix that up. And they even have like little to-go bottles where you can take it on the go with you. So that's cool. And then they also have these, it's Oxy Boost, and it's Oxy Boost, I think is what it's called. And it's similar to what like the Oxy Clean beads do. And so you can use that, and they're either their all-purpose or their bathroom cleaner spray, and like treat stains with it. We've had a lot of success with that. So yeah, and Nathan used Shout before, and it's like once we started weaning off of all the fragrances and he was still using Shout, I'd hug him and I was like, oh my word, it's so strong. How do you handle that around your neck? Is like, well, it works, until while we were looking for stuff. So we really like the Branch Basics. I've actually done some DIYs. I have a countertop spray that I absolutely love. And it's like Bronner's soap. It's like a tablespoon of Bronner's, some rubbing alcohol, and water and vinegar. And no, not vinegar in that one, and water. And I love it. I have a floor spray that I love. And again, I created it for our wood floors, and I found it online. It wasn't my recipe, but I put it together, and it's water, vinegar, alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and some drops of peppermint oil. And I love it. It's, the peppermint oil is our fragrance and on that one, but people walk in and they're like, oh my word, that smells so good. What is that? And so it's fragranced in the way that we think of it, but it smells good, but it's not, the toxic chemical, that fragrance. Parfum is another word that you'll see for it. It's not the toxic situation that is. But yeah, I was thinking while I said that, because, the whole fragrance parfum thing, that definitely includes perfumes. Like I had one that I loved and we started going off of things and I was like, this is bothering me now. I get headaches from it. But like for that, I have Dime perfumes. Dime Beauty makes perfumes. Love their perfumes. And they actually have sample kits that you can try out and see what fragrance you like. They have men's cologne options too. That's a newer thing. I think they have maybe 2 men's cologne fragrances. But they have beauty products too. And I love their skincare stuff. They have like serums and things, and they're all 100% healthy. In fact, Mom had bought the eye serum that I recommended, and I didn't know it would do this, but I had forgotten to use some one day. I was like, you have some, right? She said, oh yeah, go use some. And so I went in there and I opened it, and it had disintegrated or evaporated, because like there's no preservatives in it, nothing. It was just gone. And we laughed about it because it's like, well, okay, I guess you got to use that faster than the stuff that has all the preservatives and the bad stuff in it. But so that's a line I like a lot. I'm trying to think, like skincare. Alivia is really good. It's clean, toxin free, but also it feeds the skin microbiome, which is another interesting topic. So traditional soaps kill the healthy bacteria on our skin that helps keep it balanced with the right things and helps fight off things like sickness and all of that. The skin is where you typically encounter sickness first. And so having a soap that kind of balances out your microbiome and helps you fight things off in that way is excellent. Their orchid one is amazing. Their face stuff, I love those. I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I haven't said? Oh, floor cleaner. Or just cleaning in general. I think it's called 5 Guard, and it's, I get it off Amazon. It is like a replacement for Thieves.
Okay.
Which is a popular cleaning product among people who have gotten rid of toxins and things like that. But Thieves is good, and Amazon has that as well. But a lot of people feel like it's a little expensive for them to pick. So 5 Guard is something that I found, and it smells so good. But again, is not the harsh situation that a lot of products are. So those are some examples. Like, is there anything I haven't covered that you think I should?
I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. Maybe dish soaps and things like that.
Dish soaps, yeah. Purity is a good option for that. Branch Basics also has like dishwasher tablets, and some people really like them. It was brand new, and so I haven't really tried it because some people were like, they either liked it or they didn't. That's one thing though that you will find when you start switching stuff out is it's really hard to get past what such and such did, what this did before or that did before. And so people will be like, well, it leaves spots, and I'm like, okay, so maybe put some baking soda in there, or sorry, what's it called? Vinegar in there, to kind of shine those up a little bit. But like I said, trial and error, trying some things, figuring out, I'm not a big fan of that. And moving on to something else. But that's another line that you can get on Amazon or on a website. But we do it's the disintegrating plastic, or not plastic, but the stuff that disintegrates around in a packet. And we love it. It's worked out really well for us. But yeah. And then they have like dish soaps, the liquid dish soap for scrubbing dishes in the sink, that sort of thing as well. So,
okay. So now I'd like to get into, what does the Bible say about being healthy and clean living?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think the first thing that comes to everybody's mind is the scripture about the body is the temple of the Lord, and that we should glorify God in our bodies. And that's an excellent one, but I think people get hung up on, well, okay, but that's one verse. So I actually did a little looking into it and was like, I wonder what all I can find on this. And I found some that were interesting. The 3rd John 1 and 2 says, Beloved, I pray that you prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. And I knew I'd read that before, but it hadn't really jumped out at me, probably because I wasn't thinking about this topic specifically. And, people are kind of like, a lot of people go to the verse, 1 Timothy 4 and 8. For bodily exercise profits a little, but godliness is profitable for all things, having promise of the life that now is and of that which is to come. And so they're like, oh, that means that it doesn't matter. Like, focus on the spiritual, because that's of little profit and this is of a lot of profit. One of the things that Nathan probably just gets tired of hearing it, but I'm like, do we realize how much they walked compared to how much we walk now? Like, they did not have the massive obesity problem that the U.S. has. Mm-hmm. We drive everywhere. I want to go across town. I get in my car and I drive. They primarily had to walk,
Mm-hmm.
They were walking, they were healthy, and in addition to that, they were eating things that were not synthetic and not man-made. They were eating what God had given us. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. And so I think that kind of puts it in perspective of, I know I was convicted when I was reading that. I was like, okay, so I need to think along those lines. Everything that we do is either giving glory to God or it isn't. And including what we eat, what we drink, which means what we're putting in our bodies. And then Genesis 1:29, and God said, See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. And I think that goes back to me where we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from what God provided, and man has gotten involved and said, I can do better. And I can make that better. I can make that more resilient. I can make that more this. I can make that more that. And so to me, that's been something that I really feel that we personally in our home need to really focus on and get back to, is not the convenient stuff, but get back to what God gave us to eat. And in its purest form as much as we're able to. But because essentially what happens is then we're at the doctor's office trying to figure out what's wrong with us, going down the list. And I saw somebody was laughing about it the other day because it was like, well, I went to the doctor and my blood pressure was high. So they put me on this medication. And then I started having this side effect to the medication. So they put me on that. And I actually had a friend that this kind of happened to. Like she changed doctors and the doctor was like, why are you on all this stuff? But that's what happened. She had a side effect, probably due to lifestyle or a health problem arise due to lifestyle. And then they just started tapping on all these different medications. And so just relying more on what God has given us and what we have access to as believers. And this is a little bit off topic, but ties into all of that because all of these things can cause and create health problems in our bodies. And so then in addition to taking inventory of what I'm doing, what I'm putting in me, what I'm allowing to be in our home, that whether it's either nourishing or it's not, but then once we've addressed that, looking at health problems and saying, okay, how do we address health problems? And we've come to rely heavily on our medical system because of all of this. And my story is one of going down a rabbit hole, tests, and more tests, no answers, no true help. And so James 5:14-15 says, is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church and let him pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith will save the sick, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he has committed sins, he will be forgiven. And so the thing that I find interesting about this verse is, like we talked about earlier, health is the body, what's going on in our body. It's the mind, how's our mental health, and it's spiritual. And I find it interesting that this is about physical sickness. But then at the end, it's like, oh, and by the way, if he has committed sins, he will be forgiven, which is the spiritual sickness. And so it's just all tied together. It's all linked together in that way. But I do want to point out that to me, this is a pattern scripture, because there are scriptures in the Bible that say, like, if they laid hands on this, you'll lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. This verse says, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And so to me, that's like a pattern. And so from a spiritual approach to sickness in our home, a biblical approach to sickness in our home, we have started, like, if one of us is sick, we go get the oil and we lay hands and we pray and we speak the name of Jesus over whichever one of us is sick. And we have actually started noticing little, like, oh, that headache is gone. Oh, I felt bad, but I'm feeling better now. Oh, I was in distress, I mentally just weighed down. And oh, look, God touched me. So it just ties into all of the aspects of health. And so, yeah.
It's kind of like, there's actually a lot of examples of that. I like the point that you pointed out. It is a pattern. There's a lot of examples of when Jesus would heal people. It almost always started with the heart. Your healing is secondary to your heart condition,
Right?
And not your physical heart condition, your soul. Yeah. And so that's always been kind of interesting to me, is that it seems like there's so many instances where when Jesus would heal someone, he started with their sins, because it was almost like him saying, what's the point of having a good, healthy body if your soul isn't healthy?
Yeah. Well, on that note, he said, that he came to seek and save that which was lost. Like that was his mission statement. And so I heard somebody a while back say that, everything he does in the natural is going to support that mission. Everything he does not in the natural, but I mean, like healings, physical healings, miracles, things like that. It's always going to tie back to that because it's his mission. It's his goal. It's everything.
Wow. That's good.
Yeah.
So my next question, and I just want to kind of touch on this. So when people are buying, let's say, the diet product, or they're buying something that says, Diet Coke, or even some of the supplements and things that people are going on that are like diet supplements and things like that. What are some of the downsides to the diet products? Because that diet doesn't necessarily mean healthy.
Right. So I'm gonna talk about those separately because supplements, it can be a little bit different. But let's start with the diet foods and drinks and things. Unfortunately, people have seen over the years, they're like, okay, we've got this group of people that's interested in losing the weight. They're interested in, because like sugar-free is a thing that you'll see. And unfortunately, people have seen that there's this desire for people to be healthy. They want to cut out the sugar. And so if I'm not doing my research and I go to the store and I see something says that it's sugar-free, I'm like, oh, that's perfect because I'm trying to go off of sugar. I don't want sugar. Unfortunately, that means that they've taken the traditional name for sugar out, the traditional sugars out, and they've put something else in it. And I wish I had pulled it up, but like there are so many different names for sugar. Like go look it up. Do a quick search for all the different names, like maltodextrin, I think, dextrose, sucralose. It's a long list. And
they're all synthetic sweeteners.
It's still it's still sugar. It's not even like, I'm not talking like stevia or monk fruit or things like that. Those are sugar substitutes that have very minimal glycemic consequences. I can't think of a better word. I know there's a better word for it than that, but
they have a lower glycemic index. Right.
And so those are not, there are those who will argue that there are issues with those, but I'm just talking about like the things that you'll see in sugar-free items. There's always a replacement for it. So let's talk about the most common thing is probably like people are like, oh, I've got to have my Diet Coke. I've got to have my Diet Dr. Pepper. So that's sweetened with aspartame.
Yes.
And it is a can of worms to talk about aspartame.
It is.
The deal is aspartame is a neurotoxin. And so the story that I tell with aspartame and how dangerous it is our mom was talking to our grandmother one day on the phone. And if you wanted gum, you needed to go to Mamaw because she had a pack of gum every single time. Well, she would sit there and chew piece after piece after piece until all the flavor was gone and, just move on to the next piece. And so Mom was talking to her on the phone that day, and that's what she was doing. She had been chewing gum. And all of a sudden, Mom's talking to her, and what she is saying back makes no sense at all. She just starts talking out of her head, and Mom was like, what? And she said something again, and it made no sense. And she did eventually recover, but that was all they could ever figure out was that she was chewing that gum, and it has aspartame in it. And aspartame is a neurotoxin. Neuro refers to the brain. And so she couldn't think straight and couldn't speak straight after having so much of that in her system.
Hmm.
And, I think that some people are so skeptic. Like I said earlier, they're like, there's no way. There's no way they would do that. That's not the goal. You have to understand the goal and the plan is not to poison you. The goal and the plan is to make money.
That's right.
And you touched on this earlier, and I agree. I don't think they're doing studies to see how it's going to affect humans. I think that just doesn't happen, And so I don't know that we can say with 100% certainty that they're not out trying to hurt somebody, I'm sure that a lot of these people are just normal people just trying to make a living. They don't realize what's going on. But that's why it's so important to be your own advocate. No one is going to try and take care of my body the way that I am, because nobody knows me like me. And I'm the one who drinks something and goes, oh, wow, that's not good for me at all. I'm the one that knows that if I have a sweet tea after 5 o'clock, chances are good 2 a.m. I'm going to be staring at the ceiling going, oh, why did I do that? So we know our bodies, and that's why it's so important to just do the research, trust when you do eat something or you drink something and you're like, man, I feel off. That just doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't feel right. Trust that instinct, and you don't even have to look into it if you don't want to. And you're just like, oh, I'm just going to stop having that because I don't like how it makes me feel. But I feel like it is a good idea to do the research, because then you realize, oh, okay, that's why it made me feel that way. And then the supplements question. I think that supplements, you're going to be hard pressed to find something healthy that really does what you're trying to get it to do. I'm trying to think of, there was something a while back that was really popular, and it was a supplement, and I can't remember what it was, but people were taking it. The caffeine level was off the charts. And it was before I had kind of started learning what I've learned along the way. And so I was like, man, I could stand to lose some weight. I'm going to try it out. It was like, it took me back to the days when I used to drink Monsters at work, and you're like, eyes this big around, like you kind of hear ringing in your ears, and it's like, okay, this is not good. So a lot of things that market in the supplement world as being, oh, it's going to make you lose weight. Again, look at those ingredients. See what they're going to do for you. What are they tied to? And as we've learned with Splenda and aspartame, look at why they were invented in the first place. How did they come about in the first place? That's a great place to start. Research. I think if anything, if I could tell anybody anything, don't just take my word for it. Research.
Yep.
And because it's such a multifaceted topic. And when you start looking for yourself, it becomes personal. And you can kind of see for yourself where you need to go next and what you need to look at next. And listening to somebody else, I follow people on Instagram. They're great resources. They've, learned a lot. But again, they'll even remind you sometimes, this was my personal journey. I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm not saying you need to cut that out. So just learning for yourself, just take one topic and be like, okay, I want to learn about this. I want to learn about foods. I want to learn about ingredients. I want to learn about what's so wrong with this. What does this cause? And go from there and see where it takes you.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's really good. I think we've kind of gone through what we had discussed about getting through today. And I just, there's so much there. I would encourage people to dig it out, because like you're gonna if you start this, you start looking into what you're actually eating and what you're actually putting in your body. It kind of becomes a rabbit hole, um,
Yeah.
because it's never ending. All the things, and it's like moderation. You need to do like change in moderation.
Oh
Like
yeah.
if you cut out everything that is so bad for you tomorrow, it would actually make you sick.
Man.
So
You'll
like
feel like you have the flu.
yeah,
Trust me.
it would not be good. So,
Yeah.
I would not say that somebody should just go and just get off everything today, although eventually you would feel a lot better.
Yeah.
But find the thing that you're addicted to, or find the thing that
Yeah.
you crave, and find out
huge, yeah.
why, because sometimes those cravings are not natural cravings.
Right.
Sometimes we like something, we really like it, that's fine. But sometimes it's because it's a chemical reaction in your body, and your body's literally craving
Yeah.
what it is that you think you just like.
Yeah.
And so I would say, find the thing that you really like, and as much as you're going to hate it, go look into it and
Yeah.
find out, because you might be putting toxins in your body and have no idea.
One thing that I will say too is that, speaking of cravings, like even a sugar craving can mean that that gut health needs to be worked on. I mean, like seriously, we could follow this train and never get off and just keep looping around, because there's so much in this topic, and when you start diving in and looking at things where health and food and products and all of it's concerned, but like that's another thing about doing the research is you may start to see, oh, I have this problem, that I need to work on it, and I didn't realize it. Oh, this is why I felt this way. Oh, that's why. Because like sugar can, like I said, can be a gut health issue. Chocolate cravings can mean you're low on magnesium, and so, maybe you need to look into your magnesium levels and see where you are with that. You can get a test. I think you can get that checked at the doctor's office. I've done that before. But sometimes blood serum tests won't show you exactly. In magnesium, we're pretty much all see, this is another rabbit trail, because when it comes to food and things, our soil is not what it was 100 years ago and further back. Like we've depleted our methods of farming that we've created for convenience sake have depleted the soil of all the minerals and things that our body needs. And so magnesium used to be plentiful in the soil. It's not now. And so that's one of the things that a lot of people have to supplement with. I supplement with it, feel great. But yeah, so chocolate, as I was saying, cravings can be an indication that my magnesium's low. So just kind of, like you said, picking up a magnifying glass at those cravings and being like, okay, why am I craving this? Is it just because it's an addictive toxin? Is it something that I need to look at to replenish my body? That sort of thing.
Absolutely. Well, there's a lot that we can get into. We can follow this, like you said, like off like a never ending train. But
Right.
we just need to delve into this. We'll find another topic and we'll dig into it. Maybe we'll go a little deeper on some of this stuff in the future if you're interested. And but yeah, I'm so grateful that you came on the show today, and it's been a really good topic. I hope we get into more of this down the road. But thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.